Good evening. Welcome to the Triangle Center for Spiritual Living. The four of us have just been sitting here having a discussion. Do you say Happy Good Friday or Merry Good Friday? Or we didn't really quite know what to say. So I'm just saying hello. Welcome. So glad to have you with us this evening. So glad for this technology that allows us to come into your home so that we can continue to be on this spiritual path together. I just invite you to take a moment, take one deep collective breath, to allow yourself to be present to this beautiful now moment. To close your outer eyes, turn your attention away from the world of form and turn it inward to the inner side of life. It is here that I truly feel that presence of the one mind, the one heart, the one life, the one love, the one creative energy back of everything that there is, seen and unseen. I know that this presence is benevolent. I know that it is everywhere at all times, in its fullness and in its wholeness. I know that it is that which created me, that which sustains me, breathed me, loves me, guides me, guards me, supports me. And just as I know that this is my truth, I know that it is absolutely the truth of each and every person within the sound of my voice. Each and every person, each and every sentient being on the planet. We are all divine emanations of the One, ambassadors of its presence, ambassadors of its love, its joy, its peace, its creativity, its abundance. And it is from that place of unity that I bless our time together, calling it good and very, very good, even as it is just beginning. I know that everything that needs to be said is said, everything that needs to be heard is heard, that there is a relevance to this time in our lives, and that there is something that shifts our energy, shifts our consciousness. I bless Mark and Heather for their presence and their support this evening. I bless Karen as she comes up to bless us with her beautiful voice that adds inspiration to our evening. And I bless everyone that is watching us through Facebook Live or on Zoom. Just so grateful for this community. So grateful for this technology, so grateful for the opportunity to be together this evening. And so for all of the blessings, those that I'm aware of and those I can't even begin to imagine, I am grateful. We anchor this together by saying, and so it is. Please welcome licensed spiritual practitioner, the lovely Heather Abbott.
Hello. Thank you all for being here this evening. The reading for this evening is from Richard Bach, from his book, Illusions. He says, "Once there lived a village of creatures along the bottom of a great crystal river. The current of the river swept silently over them all, young and old, rich and poor, good and evil, the current going its own way, knowing only its own crystal self. Each creature in its own manner clung tightly to the twigs and rocks at the river bottom, for clinging was their way of life, and resisting the current was what each had learned from birth. But one creature said at last, 'I am tired of clinging. Though I cannot see it with my eyes, I trust that the current knows where it's going. I shall let go and let it take me where it will. Clinging, I shall die of boredom.' The other creatures laughed and said, 'Fool, let go, and that current you worship will throw you tumbled and smashed across the rocks and you shall die quicker than from boredom. But the one heeded them not, and taking a breath did let go, and at once was tumbled and smashed by the current across the rocks. Yet in time, as the creature refused to cling again, the current lifted him free from the bottom, and he was bruised and hurt no more. And the creatures downstream, to whom he was a stranger, cried, "See, a miracle, a creature like ourselves, yet he flies. See the Messiah come to save us all." And the one carried in the current said, "I am no more Messiah than you. The river delights to lift us free, if only we dare let go. Our true work is this voyage, this adventure."
Thank you, Heather. Wisdom from nature. We've kind of been using that all month as kind of examples of who we are and how we can be to really live powerful and really wonderful lives. Now, if you've been coming here for any length of time, you would know that we believe that there is a power for good which is greater than we are that we can use. And in fact, we have been using it throughout all our lives, whether consciously or unconsciously, to create all of the experiences of our lives. What I believe about the events surrounding the week between Palm Sunday and Easter Sunday is that Jesus was in full command. The circumstances that he attracted to himself were exactly what he wanted to have happened in order to be able to demonstrate that each and every single one of us must accept 100% responsibility for our lives. And when we do so, that there is the possibility that we will experience what some people might call a miracle, but will actually be simply the natural expression of Spirit through and as us. The stories surrounding this week are really the stories of all of us. They are the stories of our journeys through life, our mental and our spiritual growth, and of all of the obstacles that we meet along the way. We look at the stories here at the Triangle Center for Spiritual Living metaphysically to really be able to understand them and to be able to actually experience their relevance in our lives today. So I just suggest and encourage everyone that as you're listening this evening, that be thinking about and running this conversation through the lens of what we are all going through in the world today, that what we are all collectively experiencing, and to see if there is any wisdom in that for you as you each navigate in your own way, what is occurring for us right now. Now, metaphysically, the events surrounding Palm Sunday show us how to commune with the unseen power within each one of us and how to take dominion over our lives by how we use this power. Now, tonight we're going to be looking at the crucifixion metaphysically. During his crucifixion, Jesus made 7 statements from the cross. So he gave us 7 spiritual truths, and they're scattered throughout all 4 of the Gospels in the Bible. Now, even during this really dramatic period in his life, he was actually teaching us. And just like all of his other teachings, they have really, they're really appropriate, and they really have a lot to tell us and to inform us about how to be in our lives. In our lives when things are all going well, and in our lives when they might not be going so well. They each contain a significant spiritual truth which is necessary for our spiritual growth and unfoldment. Now, in Luke 23, verse 34, Jesus says, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." The bottom line, which we talk about all of the time, is that forgiveness is one of the mightiest of spiritual acts. That without it, nothing in the nature of real spiritual progress can be achieved. What is significant about this statement is that Jesus doesn't claim to be the one doing the forgiving. He acknowledges God as the one forgiving power. And so the underlying invitation is for each of us to do that same thing, that it would behoove us to realize that it is not my forgiveness or your forgiveness, but the forgiving power of God's love that is at work. And that if we were to really stand in this truth, it would be much easier to forgive, knowing that it's not something personal. That if we were to really stand in this truth, that all we would have to do would be to consent to letting that forgiving power of God simply be directed through us on behalf of others, and more specifically, on behalf of our own self. Now, forgiveness is the first step in our journey of transformation. It's the foundation upon which our lives will be lifted up, the foundation upon which we will forever make this transformation into our highest and greatest selves. In Luke 23, verse 43, Jesus says, "Today you will be with me in paradise." Now, Jesus wasn't the only person that was crucified on that day. There were two thieves that were also crucified that were with him. Unity founder Charles Fillmore wrote that these two thieves represent the past and the future. That memories of the past and anxiety of the future can rob us of our peace, our joy, our freedom. The now moment is the only moment where paradise resides. So the now moment is the only space and time in which we can really fully change. It's the only time in which we can really grow. It's the only time in which we can really experience freedom. And it's the only time in which we can feel real joy. Jesus represents our spiritual awareness of this truth. The thief to whom Jesus spoke to represents the future. So Jesus is saying that we need not project ourselves out into the future, but instead bring all our thoughts about the future into paradise, into the current now moment. It is happening now. The greatest joy, the greatest peace, the greatest freedom in the world is experienced in the now moment, because that is where the divine resides. That is paradise. In John 19, verse 26 and 27, Jesus says, "Woman, behold your son, behold your mother." Now, these words were spoken to Mary and, according to tradition, to the disciple John. Now, literally, Mary and John were not mother and son, but Jesus was speaking from a level of the highest understanding concerning the truth of all human relationships. And one of the greatest realizations that we can have or that we can come to is the realization that our relationship to every other human being and every other sentient being on the planet, that we are one. that we are one with them. There is only one of us here. That whatever biological ties exist, the spiritual ties are stronger and more important. In spirit, we are each other's mother. We are each other's father. We are each other's brother. We are each other's sister. In spirit, we are one. To realize this and to really accept it into our lives will guarantee that we will make great steps forward in our spiritual growth and unfoldment. In Mark 15, verse 34, Jesus says, my God, why have thou forsaken me?" Now, Jesus is once again here teaching by making an example of himself. So really, he speaks this question to show us what we very often have in our own hearts and in our own minds. This very same question. The question wondering why we feel such a great separation from God. Even when we know better, even when we know that we can never be separate from God, that feelings can still creep over us even before we're really aware of it. And then in that moment, we wonder, why has God forsaken us? Perhaps with all that is going on right now, there are people that have been thinking, why has God forsaken us? It happens really to the best of us, those moments. And that's why it's great to have a community, because we can remind each other when we have those moments, like Jesus had that moment. My God, why have thou forsaken me? Now, the invitation is really to not make our feelings wrong, but to really move through them with faith, knowing that right where we are at all times, God is, and in God, all is unfolding in divine right action. All is unfolding in divine right order. In the end, right, we talked about this last week, one of my favorite movies, The Most Exotic Marigold Hotel. In the end, in God, all things feel good. So if it doesn't feel good yet, it just simply means it's not the end. It's just not the end. God is right where we are at all times. So knowing this truth isn't an invitation to engage in spiritual bypass and to sweep our feelings underneath the rug, but to know that because God is right where we are, that we are free to express our feelings, that we are free to acknowledge them, that we are free to move through them. And in that authentic expression of them, that is when we are made free. Being able to speak about them and to feel them and to allow them to occur, to embrace them. Often the deepest dives that we make are during those moments, those dark moments of our lives. Often those are the times in which we really experience the most powerful and transformational inner journey that we can ever make. In John 19, verse 28, Jesus says, I thirst. Now, this is an affirmation of a need. It's an asking. The statement was immediately followed by the meeting of that need. Jesus was given something to drink. Jesus had previously taught us, ask and you shall receive. Here he gives an example of practicing what he preached. He wanted something and he asked, and it was given. There's times when we find ourselves in a situation where things look really hopeless, as they probably did for Jesus. During such times, what should we do? That was what he taught. Ask, and it shall be given. This is the time really to thirst for a deep and abiding connection with Spirit. It's a time to thirst for our awareness of the spark of the divine within. It's a time to thirst for a vision of our highest and best self yet to be. With these words, Jesus is describing the life force that is within us. When we thirst for this wellspring, we are forever made anew. When we are aligned with the power and the presence of the divinity within, there's no situation too hopeless, because the power and the presence of God is mightier than any circumstance in the outer world. In John 19, verse 30, Jesus said, "It is finished." Now, everything that happens in a person's life is part of a cycle of learning and growing and unfolding. Every event, every experience, every circumstance, every relationship, every victory, every defeat are all factors in a great overall pattern of evolution. Now, one of the most difficult lessons that we have to learn is to recognize when something has fulfilled its role in our life and is now to be seen as finished business. It's very hard for many of us to recognize that. Some of us, in fact, never seem to learn to recognize that some things are finished and to allow ourselves to move on. We cannot fool the law. We cannot be holding on to a piece of the past. We cannot be holding on to some old belief and expect to create something new. Once put on the cross, right? Once put on the cross, once we say that it is finished, we can't take it back down. We can't bring it off if we really want to be able to move forward. We have to let it go. So we all may go through certain difficult or really painful experiences. And the invitation is to be able to learn the lessons that that are contained within them as quickly as we possibly can. When we feel that we have seen the lesson, then it is wise to say, as Jesus said, "It is finished." And then to hold no grudges, to nurse no hurt feelings, to carry no unhappy memories. It's done. It is finished. Let it go. It's done the work that it was meant to do. Greater good is now in store. Let the past bury the past. It's finished. In Luke 23, verse 46, Jesus says, "Father, into thy hands I commit my spirit." Now, Jesus had gone through a complete cycle in which he had accomplished exactly what he had come here to do. He had brought that cycle to a climax in the symbolism of the drama of the crucifixion. The words that he chose at that time to verbalize that climax was in the statement, "Father, into thy hands I commit my spirit." Jesus' life and death were an absolute demonstration of faith and surrender. Surrender contains within it all of the support and all of the guidance that we need for our transformation. This is a time for letting go and letting God. What Jesus is teaching us this Easter weekend is that by dying to the old, we can be born again in the new. By letting go of whatever it is that binds us, no matter how comfortable we may be with it, whether it's an addiction, an illness, a debt, a miserable relationship, a dead-end job, procrastination, lack of education or opportunity, or any of the thousands of excuses that we can have for staying with the status quo or living a less than fulfilling life, we can let go of the old and step powerfully into the new. We can surrender the old and make way for the new. Now, once we become willing to release the past, to let go of our stories, and to step out of victimhood, we are already well into the resurrection experience. Giving up the old is never easy, but it can be done. I promise you, it can be done. It requires our willingness. It requires a leap of faith, the faith of God. We have to have faith that we know that where we are going is much better than where we are right now. We have to have that faith. The bottom line is that the crucifixions of our lives are gateways to a higher consciousness. Every crucifixion, every little death is calling us to be more fully who we really are. In his book, The 7 Living Words, Reverend Mark Anthony Lord says, every crucifixion, no matter how difficult or seemingly life-shattering, is simply a desire to follow your dreams at all costs. Our crucifixion is calling us to surrender so that we can remember the truth that is within us is the greatest power of all. The greatest power of all is within us. But we need to surrender. Now, there's many definitions for this word surrender, and most of them have to do with yielding to the power or the control or the possession of another based on a demand or on compulsion. Now, it means to give up completely or to agree to forgo one's own power in favor of another person's power. Now, in my mind's eye, I see a white flag being hoisted up over a battlefield. Now, for many of us, this idea of surrender leaves a really bad taste in our mouth. It speaks of weakness and cowardice, of giving up or giving away our power, or of letting go of the control of a situation, or, heavens, the control of our lives. We may have a great resistance to actually doing it, and we may experience some regret when we do. Now, the truth is that while it can mean to give up, or to give away, it can also mean to give way to something greater than we are. For me, this isn't about weakness or cowardice, but about faith in things unseen and about the strength to brave the unknown, to be willing to step off that branch. Now, for me, this is not a giving up or a giving in, but an allowing. An allowing. By giving way to a power and presence greater than we are allowing the flow of life to move through and as us, unimpeded by our inner resistance. There's no resistance in that surrender, only flow. It can simply mean to stop fighting, to stop resisting the flow of life. It can simply mean letting go of that which no longer serves us. My guess is that everyone that's listening to tonight is a little bit perplexed. You're perplexed because here at the Triangle Center for Spiritual Living, we believe and teach that there is a power greater than we are, and that we can use it to co-create the life that we really want to live. That we teach that we're not powerless in the face of the events that are unfolding in our lives, that our thoughts and our words, fueled by our feelings, have the power to create and to recreate our lives again and again and again. So, what is it, Dusty? Which one is it? Do you want us to do we want to ask for what we want in our lives? Do we want to create what we want in our lives? Or do we want to live from a place of surrender? Well, it depends. They both have benefits. They both have benefits. When we're more specific, we learn that life mirrors our thoughts and our beliefs, and we learn that we can create a more positive experience for ourselves. We move from being a victim battered about by life and step powerfully into the creative beings that we were created to be. On the other hand, when we surrender, we begin to sense that we are part of a larger whole, that we are not alone, that we are connected to everything and everyone around us. We learn to listen for and to our inner voice, to the voice of the divine within us. We begin to see all of the experiences in our lives through spiritual eyes. And when we do that, that allows us to see the blessings that are in all of them. That if God is everywhere at all times, then God is right there in that experience, and there is a blessing. Kristen Jongen, in her book Growing Wings, says you can't fake authentic surrender, for it is the moment you unclench your hands, accept what is, and finally let go, that the fertile space is provided for divine intervention and unimaginable possibilities. Let me read that again. You can't fake authentic surrender, for it is the moment you unclench your hands, accept what is, and finally let go. That is the fertile space is provided for divine intervention and unimaginable possibilities. So the invitation this evening is to begin wherever we are in the matter and to find the right and perfect balance for ourselves. At the very least, the invitation is to think about surrendering our white-knuckled need for control, to surrender living our lives from a space of lack and limitation, to surrender living our lives from a space that is in resistance, that fights what is, to surrender our hold on the saying, my way or the highway. The invitation today is to empty our cup, to surrender our underlying belief in separation, and to cultivate, as Jesus did, a deep and abiding awareness of our oneness with each other, of our oneness with life itself, our oneness with the divine, because from that place, anything is possible. Today, on Good Friday, we are reminded again and again and again that the time to do this is now.
There is no guilt here, there is no shame, no pointing fingers, there is no blame. What What happened yesterday has disappeared. The dirt is washed away, and now it's clear. There's only grace, there's only love, there's only mercy, and believe me, it's enough. The past is gone without a trace. There's nothing left now, there's only grace. You're starting over now, under the sun. You're stepping forward now. Your new life has begun. Your new life has begun, and there's only grace, there's only love, there's only mercy, and believe me, it's enough. The past is gone without a trace. There's nothing left now, there's only grace. And if you should fall again, get back up, get back up, reach out and take my hand. Get back up, get back up, get back up again. Get back up, 'cause there's only grace, there's only love, there's only mercy, and believe me, it's enough. The past is gone without a trace. There's nothing left now, there's only grace.
I could listen to that voice for hours and hours and hours. Beautiful song, perfectly spoke to the talk. There's only grace, no more past. It is finished, as Jesus said. So it's time, right? It is time. It is time to stop playing small. It's time to let go of the past, to cross out, to eliminate, to crucify that which no longer is needed for our transformation, for our continued unfoldment, for our evolution, for our resurrection. Every time we eliminate error thoughts or words and actions from our human experience, we are made free. We are made new again. This is the meaning of salvation. So now is the moment that we are going to do our ritual. So if you don't have a piece of paper yet and would love to take a moment just to grab one, that would be wonderful. A piece of paper and a pen or a pencil. And then to get comfortable wherever you're sitting and to close your outer eyes and to go within. to allow yourself to open to your own inner wisdom, to listen for that divine voice. Take 3 deep breaths. And ask yourself, what ideas, old patterns, resentments, unforgiveness, or beliefs am I harboring that are preventing me from moving ahead? What is restricting the flow of good in and through my life? What am I willing to let go of? What am I willing to surrender? The invitation is to reverently listen for the answer. Ask, and it is given. What ideas, old patterns, resentments, unforgivenesses, or beliefs am I harboring that are preventing me from moving ahead? What is restricting the flow of good in and through my life? What am I willing to let go of? What am I willing to surrender? And when you're ready, just open your eyes gently, take the little piece of paper you were given and begin writing. Begin writing whatever that was. Now, normally, if we were all here in the sanctuary, I'd invite you to come up and we'd use that flash paper and we'd just have it be gone. Or we would use the dissolvable paper and we'd put it in the water and have it be gone. So the invitation is that when we are complete here today, that you do that. Hold it up into a flame in the sink, in the kitchen sink, or take it outside and burn it. Do whatever you can to cross it off, circle around it, and do the verboten sign. Cross it off in some way that feels symbolic and important and significant to you, however that looks like. And to remember that once those things are put on that cross, once they are handed over, that you don't want to go back and pick them up. There's tendency to want to do that, right? We do. But to really turn away from them, to begin anew, to begin fresh. And Sunday, we're really going to talk about that. And in fact, the week after that, too. It's a whole series, if you will. So in this moment, I just invite you to take that piece of paper and to hold it in your hand as I speak a word of prayer for each of us around this ritual, around the surrendering of whatever it is that we have written. And so with my eyes closed, I am acutely aware of the power and presence that is within me and surrounding me. I call it God, but it goes by many different names: the divine, love, peace, first cause, Buddha, Allah. Sometimes nothing at all, but by whatever name we call it, it is the very essence of peace and joy and creativity and love and grace. I know that I am one with it. It is that which created me. In a moment of unconditional love. And just as I know that this is true for me, I know that it is true for everyone listening to this message this evening. We are all divine emanations of the divine. And it is from that place of deep and abiding connection, connected to each other by that golden thread of God stuff that weaves itself throughout all of life, that I speak these words about and for each of us individually and collectively as the Triangle Center for Spiritual Living, as the entire world. I know beyond a shadow of a doubt that we are spiritual beings having a human incarnation. And that we arrived on the planet with everything that we need within us to create the life of our dreams for ourselves, for our families, for the world. That there is a power and presence that is within us that is greater than we are, that we can use. Its creative power is our creative power. We create the experiences of our lives by co-creating with this power that is within us. And in those moments when we cannot feel our deep and abiding oneness, when we do not feel totally aligned with this power and presence, when we feel that we are separate, the invitation is to surrender, to let go of the control that we think we need to have, to let go of the resistance that is within us, whatever that resistance is about, and to know that as we do so, we are set free. As we do so, we open ourselves up to the flow of life. The abundance, the wisdom, the peace, the joy, anything that we need is there, right there, for the asking. What I also know is that everything that was written on those little piece of paper is no longer needed. Is no longer desired, is no longer significant to our lives. It is finished. We can let it go. Don't turn back to the past. Open ourselves up to the grace that is present in this perfect now moment. I claim ease and grace for each of us around this. And I'm so grateful to know this truth and to speak these words. So grateful for the power of prayer, knowing that my words are loosed into a law that works with mechanical regularity to clothe them in form. And so I speak them and I release them with love and gratitude and full expectation of their manifestation, letting go and letting God be God. And I invite everyone to anchor this prayer for themselves and for each other simply by saying, "And so it is, and so it is." It's now time for our offering. And so in this moment, on the screen, there should be a text to tithe number. And that is a pretty easy way to be able to tithe back to our community. Could also go onto the website, and on the very top, on the front page, there's a button up in the right-hand corner that just says Give, so just click on that. And what I know about this spiritual practice called giving, conscious giving, is that it is a spiritual practice, that it increases our awareness of the abundance that we have in our life. It increases our awareness of the sufficiency on the planet. That as we stand in that abundance and we stand in gratitude for that abundance, that our lives are made more abundant. That the giving of our time and our talent and our treasure assists this community to continue to do what we do. And I'm so grateful for all of it. The giving of the time, the giving of the talent, the giving of the treasure. This community is its members. And we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for each and every single person that has ever walked through over our threshold. And I am so grateful. And so it is. Please welcome the awesome Karen Daly back up to the mic. Thank you.
When I was in Sunday school, we would learn about the time that Moses split the sea in two, and Jesus made the water wine. And I remember feeling sad that miracles don't happen still, but now I can't keep track. Well, everything's a miracle. Everything's a miracle. Wine from waters not so small, but an even better magic trick is anything is here at all. And so the challenging thing becomes not to look for miracles, but finding where there isn't one. When holy water's rare at best, it barely wet my fingertips, but now I have to hold my breath. I'm swimming in a sea of it. Used to be a world half there, heaven's second-rate hand-me-downs. Now I walk it with a reverent air, 'cause everything is holy now. Everything is holy now. Read a questioning child's face and say it's not a testament. Well, that'd be very hard to say. And see another new morning come and say it's not a sacrament. Tell you that it can't be done. This morning outside I stood, I saw a little red-winged bird shining like a burning bush, singing like a scripture verse. It made me wanna bow my head. I remember when church let out, how things have changed since then. Well, everything is holy now. Everything is holy now. Yeah, everything is holy now. Happy Good Friday. I miss y'all.
Everything is holy now. Beautiful. I love that song. Thank you, Karen, very much. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Heather. Thank you all. Please just turn within one last time, just for a moment of gratitude. Breathe it in. Breathe in this evening. Breathe in these spiritual truths of this time of the year. Breathe in the newness. Breathe in the letting go and the surrender. Something really magnificent is happening right now. I don't know what it is or what it's going to look like, but I do know beyond a shadow of a doubt that something really magnificent is rising out of this experience. Everything is holy now. Right where we are, God is. And so it is. Amen. I love you all. See you on Sunday.